Mary Jo has made numerous contributions to literature and history and to historical organizations. Currently, she is an officer of the New Essex County Historical Commission, and that commission is charged with the preservation of historical artifacts, historical records, and the placement of historical markers in New Essex County. And Mary Jo is there at each of our meetings. Her officership is that of secretary, and probably the best secretary work we've seen. They'll take you with we've seen in that commission sometime. Thank you for that effort. It's not easy. I appreciate it. If we look at the history of the mid-coast, I call this on the mid-Texas coast. If we look at the current history of what's going on currently in the history game in this part of our world, and we look at who is doing history day to day. I mean, literally, day to day. I think there are about 5 people that are literally Monday through Monday doing history. Mary Jo is one of those people. Sometimes Mary Jo heads that list. But it's very dynamic. Sometimes she's third on the list, and Norman Delaney is first on the list. So we have a very, very dynamic and very productive history organization going on in this part of the world, and Mary Jo is a prime contributor to that. Tonight we're going to be learning something about a part of our world here that you're all familiar with, whether you've actually been on the Intracoastal Waterway or not. You are aware of the fact that there is an Intracoastal Waterway and the importance that it is to the maritime commerce of our country, and particularly the Port of Corpus Christi and our immediate environment. Mary Jo, as she has done for the
He invited anyone who desired, quote, direct communication by water with all our deep water ports to his city, townships, city councils, trade organizations, state legislators, congressmen, and newsmen got invitations, as well as Mexico's President Porfirio Diaz. Inland regions were notified as letters flew out to Duluth, Chicago, Louisville, Kansas City, and St. Louis. The canal hauling promise would bring cheap fuel and transportation, and the response was overwhelming. Over 200 delegates came to order in Victoria at 10 o'clock Tuesday morning on August 8, 1905. By the time they dispersed Wednesday afternoon, conferees had reestablished themselves into the Interstate Inland Waterway League and set their goal, building a canal from the mouth of the Mississippi to the Rio Grande. Created with 5 permanent executive council members chaired by Holland and 2 standing committees, one from Louisiana and one from Texas, the league was now a lobby for the canal. But determination faltered amidst government snafus, voter apathy, and awakening angst. Necessary port towns began backing out commitments. Negative engineering reports seemed the norm. This waterway is not worthy of further improvement. These wharves are sufficient for the needs of present commerce. The improvement of by the United States of the Rio Grande is not being advisable. Within 2 years, it became painfully clear that to succeed, the Interstate Inland Waterway needed direction. It appeared in the form of young Roy Miller. Invited to the 1907 Houston Convention in his role as Secretary of the Corpus Christi Commercial Club, Miller's age of 23 belied his experience. Early years in northern Kansas along Blue River had instilled in him, as in Holland, a deep respect for waterways. A later scholarship at the University of Chicago put him into close contact with rail lines and river traffic feeding into Lake Michigan. The job on the Houston Post after college returned him to a city just beginning to dredge Buffalo Bayou into the Houston Ship Channel. It was not until he landed a position as railroad agent in Corpus Christi, however, did Miller find himself at home. A small seaside town situated between one river, 2 bays, and the Gulf. Entranced with the untapped potential of the place and the buoyant enthusiasm, Miller launched himself into the community. 3 years' time saw him editor of Corpus Christi Car, secretary of the local commercial club, and prime mover in a campaign to bring a deep water port to the city. But a port in itself was not sufficient. To be ultimately effective, it had to connect Corpus Christi with outlets all over the nation. So in 1907, Miller attended his first Interstate Inland Waterway League convention. There he caught the attention of Clarence Holland, who recognized the kindred spirit. Within 2 months, the men were pooling information, sorting alliances, and prioritizing goals. Soon Miller was bulldogging legislators for a canal as vigorously as he was for a port. And the effort was paying off. A 1909 telegram from Congressman Garner triumphantly announced a survey for both the canal and the port, and the Corps of Engineers confirmed the action 7 months later. At the same time, Miller began molding the amorphous Interstate Inland Waterway League into a lobbying juggernaut. First to take shape for its findings, loosely accumulated for years. Under his suggestion, the league set a 3-year target of $30,000 collected in annual installments from members to be used to prop and dice the canal. Then he made himself unofficial point man for the group, calling on local port contacts, developing new ones, and traveling to every capital, national, and state where powerful legislators met. Aggressively, he joined compatible groups, placing the league in company with the Mississippi River Valley Waterways Association and the Atlantic Deeper Waterways Association. Tirelessly, he visited small towns, larger cities, and hidden harbor enclaves, educating businessmen, bankers, merchants, and civic leaders requiring any consent, congressional approval, and administrative assent was for. Finally, getting the money actually allocated was a fail. All too often, promised funding was short-circuited by presidential parsimony, as happened in 1925 when a tight-lipped Republican shot down $7 million in canal projects. This Coolidge ailment, curtailed several canal endeavors that year, but none more drastic in his eyes than the extension of the Galveston and Corpus Christi. At other times, monetary allotments were delayed by legislative brains. When this happened, the organization became a temporary exchequer, and it fell to the now active vice president and general manager of the rechristened Intracoastal Canal Association of Louisiana and Texas to facilitate financial liquidity. One local businessman placed enough money for the Corps to complete a survey in the area. Miller contracted with the receptive bank to funnel necessary funds to the Corps of Engineers. When Congress in its next session officially allocated money, the Secretary of War repaid the bank and it closed its books, assets considerably enhanced, as were those of the pledgers, with interest provided by the association. Costly in the short term and occasionally risky, the arrangement underlined the financial strength of the canal group and its determination to keep things moving. Neither of which prevented Holland from worrying about such transactions. How soon will money be available to refund banks and relieve guarantors in survey matter Louisiana and Texas? He wrote in 1926. The association is paying interest which amounts to about $132 a month. It will be a distinct advantage to get this money repaid as soon as possible. But he toned down his anxiety. We were all very pleased with the good work we were doing and closed the letter with your friend, Miss Anderson's signature. A concern Holland was reasonable, whereas co-parts were not, especially when they threatened dissolution of the association. It soured grapes lent a special wine to a resolution instigated by some delegates to the Lafayette Conference in 1925, and it took all of Miller's tact to respond. I am at another loss to find any reason whatsoever, he wrote the ringleader, for the suggested separation as proposed. It appears to be based upon the feeling, one could almost hear his voice rising, that, quote, Texas is inclined to disregard the interest of Louisiana, end quote, and the suspicion that, quote, Louisiana cannot reasonably expect that Texas is going to spend her money for the benefit of the Louisiana end of the canal, end quote. Simple logic and basic geography computed the complaint. Texas wants the Intracoastal Canal, he emphasized. If and when Texas gets the canal, it will be only after it's been completed through Louisiana. Does it not follow, he concluded, that it is to the interest of Texas to aid and assist in every detail to ensure the earliest possible construction of the canal through Louisiana? The crisis passed and Louisiana remained part of the association, but it would not be the last time nuisance bickering sidetracks supporters. But as irritating as such incidents were, the real challenge faced by the Gulf Intracoastal Waterway Association was legal, persuading property owners to donate their land for government dredging. Here Miller's word skills served him well. Adept at public speaking, as well as editorial writing, he could turn any audience into confidants. Accordingly, when he first addressed Beaumont civic leaders about the canal stretch to be built between Plaquemine, Louisiana, and Galveston Bay, he made them privy to a basic fact. For any dredging to begin, right-of-way must be secured for the entire route. It would not be easy. For large plots of land on which new artificial channels were to be constructed, dictated the War Department, owners had to grant maximum legal ownership to the government or, quote, such absolute and indefeasible easement as will ensure permanent dedication exciting discoveries of petroleum and sulfur deposits within their environs, coastal communities had whole new reasons to desire cheap shipping. So, the Intracoastal Canal has embarked upon a policy of assisting industry localities in developing feeders to the canal, Miller stated. Arlington was scheduled to have its own side stream built to the Intracoastal, and Victoria was already shipping goods down its barge canal. They, like hundreds of other Texas and Louisiana towns, would soon be part of the great